What's going on, fellow A pluses? It's your boy Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new video for you guys today as we're going live with our spoiler review for none other than a brand new Marvel Studios film, Thunderbolts, that just went ahead and dropped last week. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out yet, please get your tickets. It is currently in theaters. Go ahead and check it out for yourself. But if you have seen Thunderbolts, this is the place you want to be, because we're going to be doing our spoiler review for Thunderbolts, talking everything Thunderbolts, from the brand new reveal of the team name to the post-credit scene, to diving into some of the character developments that we wind up getting in here. So if you got some thoughts on the movie, we'd love to discuss them with you. So again, these are simply our A+ opinions, but we always want to hear from you. Let your thoughts be known in the live chat as we go through today's episode. And it's not just myself, my boy Stewart Branscome's in the house tonight. I'm gonna have a nice little discussion talking about this Thunderbolts movie. Good to see you, man. I know it's a Monday night. Did you work today, or you were off today?
Oh no, Mondays are my days, or are also my days off. So I had today off as well as yesterday.
Nice, man. Nice. It's certainly good to have you here. I'm eager to talk some Thunderbolts with you, man. I did do a for those of you who haven't seen Thunderbolts, I did go ahead and do a non-spoiler review for you guys. It is currently up on the channel if you want to go ahead and certainly check that out for yourself. But if you haven't seen Thunderbolts, as you can see up here, spoiler warning, guys, spoiler warning. We're going to be talking a little bit of everything here for today's show. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. Stuart, I think we talked briefly about this on APlus Hero Report. I was a big fan of this movie, man. The more and more that I sit back and think about it, I'm just thinking to myself, like, yeah, I almost want to actually see this movie a second time. And I feel like it's a rarity these days when it comes to Marvel Studios movies. But I do find myself thinking, like, man, I kind of want to see it again. Have you watched it again since the first time you've seen it? Do you want to watch it again, sort of thing? How are you feeling about the movie?
I wouldn't say I'm in a hurry to want to watch this movie again, but if the opportunity arose, such as if my fiance wanted to go see it, or if one of my friends were to hit me up and say, "Hey, we're gonna go watch this movie, you want to join?" I would definitely do that. But yeah, but it was definitely a really good definitely one of the better Marvel movies we've had in quite a minute. Because I would totally agree with you. Because if it was any other that came out like in kind of recent years, I probably would. I guess the only exception, of course, being Deadpool and Wolverine. That one was also pretty good. But yeah, in terms of like how much this really felt like kind of back to basics with Marvel, though, it really does feel like the first time in a long time that we watched this Marvel movie with a huge ensemble of characters, and where it's just like the character interactions and chemistry is like the highlight of the movie again. Something that, like, it feels like we haven't gotten to see in quite some time.
Yeah, not just that for me too. I totally agree with everything you said, but like this feels like a movie that actually means something. In a sense that it fits into sort of a bigger picture of where we're going. I don't know if that's just because I was a big fan of the post-credit scene and it felt that way, or if I felt that way a little bit in regards to just the movie itself. It just felt very forward moving, not just the movie. Like, while it is, it definitely could certainly be its own standalone film. I think what it's able to do with some of the characters and things like that, pushing their story forward, seeing, I think, the impact, especially of the big announcement that was kind of made at the tail end of this movie, it really kind of changes the dynamic of the MCU a little bit and the universe that we're in. And it feels like it's one of the bigger pieces that kind of have shift the narration a little bit to something a little bit more important kind of going forward. Like, I feel like Thunderbolts is very much a pivotal piece in this phase that is going to really push the overall phase forward. And I think for me, I'm just like, yeah, this feels like sort of Marvel back to form, whereas like almost every movie that I felt that I watched, regardless of how good they were, the first three Marvel phases always felt like they were leading to something, at least. Whereas lately it's been kind of stagnant for me. So yeah, I think Thunderbolts feels like it's leading me someplace. And I think that's another reason why I kind of want to see it again.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I like that this works as a standalone, but it also does, like you said, moves the whole like MCU as a whole forward because now we have a new established Avengers team, and it's going to be kind of exciting to see how that plays out later on, especially with what they kind of hinted at the end, where it seems like Bucky and Sam don't exactly agree who gets the title of the Avengers, and how that's going to kind of play out too. That's also going to be very interesting to see how it plays out when, are they going to be fighting when they need to be working together? Because that was actually like one of the bigger down, or one of the things that kind of led to them, not being able to face the threat of Thanos. What I always found interesting,
Mm,
Infinity War, is that Tony Stark and I think Captain America not being on like speaking terms is one of the main reasons they lost that first battle, and they, ended up having to, regroup in Endgame. I think we could expect something very similar to that in Avengers Doomsday, with the way we ended this, having the kind of disagreement that we have going on now between Bucky and Sam, and whether it leads to kind of like maybe not a full on second civil war during the events of Avengers Doomsday, but definitely could lead to them not being on the same page when they really should be on the same page, and that being what gives Doctor Doom like the upper hand essentially. Yeah.
No, I kind of agree with you. It kind of feels like it could be the making of a Civil War 2 sort of thing, just based off of these two characters. I mean, we do have a Civil War 2 in the comic books.
Mhm.
Definitely a different premise to say the least, but the idea of there being like a quasi, secret storyline kind of going on in the background as we get to see Sam and Bucky maybe butting heads a little bit is a fascinating one, in the sense of, you could always go back to the idea that history tends to repeat itself or has echoes. Instead of Tony Stark and Captain and Steve, maybe now we find the situation between Sam and Bucky. I think that's certainly going to be an underlining storyline going forward. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the post-credit scene before we actually get into the details of the movie, because I feel like that's where a lot of this stuff certainly led us to. So the movie itself begins as Thunderbolts, but eventually ends as the New Avengers. As we have, I can never pronounce her name, Allegra de Fontaine or something. What's her name? I can never remember her
Oh,
damn name off the top of my
wait, you
head.
mean
Valentina
Valentina? Yeah.
Allegra de Fontaine. Yes.
Yeah.
She winds up blindsiding the team of Thunderbolts, announcing that they are, in fact, the new Avengers. I believe even Yelena whispers something in her ear like, "We own you now," or something along
Yeah.
those lines, which I thought was a great line. But we get ourselves a time jump 14 months later, after the events of Thunderbolts here, and things are a little bit juicy with what's going on. We get the opportunity to see we got brand new costumes. They have clearly redone the Avengers Towers base. They got themselves a whole nice little setup, if you will. Clearly, they view themselves as the new Avengers, but we come to find out the public doesn't necessarily feel great about them, if you will, in regards to kind of accepting them, even though they are sort of like government fronted agency here as the new Avengers. So we do have some public discourse about this brand new team, and we come to find out, as you mentioned in here, Sam is feeling some type of way. Sam has been trying to put his team together. We've kind of thought about this from Brave New World. And now we've got ourselves a whole new team, quote unquote, team of Avengers here. I think he said Sam was trying to make a copyright for the name of the Avengers also, so that he has ownership of the name. And yeah, clearly him, it doesn't seem like Bucky's picking up his phone calls anytime soon, or maybe they are. And every time that they do, they seemingly kind of argue with each other. So we do find them clearly at odds with Sam Wilson and his potential team. But then we also come to find out that there is an anomaly happening in space, Stuart, that there's a sort of interdimensional sort of breach, if you will, here. And we come to finally get our very first looks at the Fantastic Four ship in our universe, kind of really leading us into the next movie. This team clearly has no idea what they're looking at or who this Fantastic Four team is, but we as a viewer certainly know what's about to happen. I heard some people saying that they felt that that was a little bit of a spoiler for the Fantastic Four movie. I don't really find it as a spoiler per se. I mean, I kind of had the impression that we knew that they were in some capacity going to be meeting. Um, so I think we had an idea that this meeting was certainly going to happen. There's certainly a lot of pieces to put into place to figure out how we get to that particular point in time. But I love this end credit scene because again, it goes back to the idea of pushing the story forward, the interconnectedness of the MCU that really has been missing lately, because they really have been utilizing these post credit scenes for like just humor bits and not really kind of overall storytelling. And so the fact that we are where we are right now has me really really excited. But there's a part of me, Stuart, that I kind of want to know what happens between those 14 months. I feel like that's a lot of time to kind of explain some things. Maybe something along the lines of Spider-Man 4 might fill in some of those blanks for all we know. I have no idea. Um, but
You think Peter Parker will be sad that they never invited him to join the new
the new
Avengers?
Avengers? Maybe. I have no idea. Or maybe he has a conversation with Sam, and Sam was like, "Hey, bro, don't join that team, okay? Like whatever you do, don't join that team." But I think the Sam stuff really has me fascinated. The Sam and Bucky stuff. The fact that Bucky is on somebody else's team and not his, is 14 months later, I think kind of says something to me. It's not like a case of like I could understand him being like, Sam, this just like got thrown on me. Like I had no idea that this was gonna happen. You know what I mean? But then 2 months down the line, 4 months down the line, you can't be like Valentina, like I can't be a part of this team. Like I gotta go. I think there is some level of Bucky that wants that leadership role and wants to feel like one, they clearly grew a great bond in this film. The concept of never leaving each other alone, clearly they all had their own kind of personal struggles, and the idea of overcoming that stuff together is definitely a very big theme in the movie. So maybe that is what really helps Bucky stay with this team as long as he certainly has 14 months later and not departed to go ahead and certainly join Sam's team. So I'm kind of curious as to where exactly Bucky's head might be in here. What do you think? You think it has something to do with him finally being in this leadership role that he's kind of always wanted, since he's not Captain America, and this is a way for him to like prove himself again?
I 100% think that's exactly what it is. I don't want to say it like, it's a petty thing, like, but I do think a part of him was slightly jealous of, Sam getting the shield and not him. I think he knew it was the right call from Captain America, but I also, I get like kind of a slight jealousy vibe when I look at the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So having this kind of thrusted upon him, and then seeing that not only is he now in this position of leadership, but he's also in a position where he seems to actually like know what he's doing. He seems to like it. So it's not, so it's like, I think a part of him just like knows like this is just the right call for him to lead this specific group of heroes. And I think it's mostly because he kind of has an idea of what they're going through. He knows that they're all mentally damaged just like him. They all have their own kind of traumas, their own kind of skeletons, their closets, their demons. And I think that's something he's able to relate to with them on a level that, like, I don't even think like Sam Wilson, even though he's a really good therapist, I don't even think like he would be able to in the same way that Bucky can. So I think that's like one way he's looking at it, is that like Bucky really wants to keep this team that he has going for them, not just because it's like, they think that they can do good for the world, but they think that the good they're doing is also a way of them healing themselves at the same time. So I think like the main thing that like I could see Sam having a problem with is that, yes, technically, even if they say, oh, we own Valentina because we have all this stuff that we could blackmail her with and all that, there is the fact that on paper, in the eyes of the law, they are still working under her. So I could see that kind of being where the tension between Sam and, whether or not he can trust them like really comes from. The other thing too, actually, yeah, I think Was that all? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's that I think that he's in that position of leadership and he knows he can do some good with this group of heroes.
I definitely agree with you there. Shout out to Indy for coming through too. He says, I think that this agreement has to do with them maybe not handing over Bob and working with Val. I think the Val stuff is probably a bigger issue than anything. That I think Sam certainly might have uh regards about. But yeah, there's a part of me that thinks too, like, Sam is still trying to come into his own of being accepted as Captain America. And now, first of all, you got this new Avengers team that's got the other Captain America, right? The Dollar Tree Captain America, or however they referred to him, as somebody that they literally just had a past with when it comes to sort of Falcon and a Winter Soldier. Um, and I think Sam probably thinks he needs some validation, to be the leader of this new Avengers team that he's going to be putting together. And I think having his friend in arms, Bucky Barnes, next to him, I think would validate the idea, like, this is the Avengers team. You know what I mean? Not to say that the people that he's about to pick up on his team are scraps by any chance of the imagination. I mean, we got Black Panther on his team. He's gonna have Shang-Chi on his team. I'm sure Thor's probably gonna, be a part of it also, right? So you definitely have your heavy hitters in that regards. But I think it probably would mean the world to him to certainly have Bucky on his team. And so I can see the altercations and the difficulty that these two might have. But I think we can live in the world where there are two Avengers teams, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
I mean, it's in the comics. You have the Avengers
yeah.
West Coast.
Yeah, maybe they become the Avengers and then West Coast Avengers at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another asterisk for the new Avengers and they become West Coast Avengers for all we know. But I mean, I wonder if that's like something that they eventually try and kind of figure out, because I can respect both of these men in the position of roles of leadership, and their roles of leadership just meaning different things to the both of them, because I can see the idea of Bucky wanting to do something on his own and not necessarily feel like he's got to be not only in the shadow uh of Steve Rogers as Captain America, but also in the shadow of, like, while I accept the fact that you're Captain America, like, I'm also, I come second again. I'm that sidekick. So I do think there's a lot in regards to Bucky sticking around for as long as he has, maybe because of wanting that idea of being leader. So yeah, I'm fascinated with it, man. I think what's really cool to me is that Sam and Bucky have both become major players here in Marvel, in the MCU. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier did a really good job of establishing them in regards to dealing with their past and making them not only better men but better heroes by the end of it. And I think we get the opportunity to see, like, a great how good of a launching point I think something like the Falcon and Winter Soldier really was. And I think I hope a lot of people revisit that series to kind of see those stepping stones once again, if it's been a minute since they've seen it. But I've really have liked the character journey for both of these men, and even for Bucky, focusing especially here in Thunderbolts. I've really enjoyed Bucky's growth so far.
Yeah. I think my only complaint really with his growth is the whole congressman aspect of his character, which was introduced, of course, in Captain America: Brave New World. It confused me then, and it still confuses me within the context of Thunderbolts. I just that journey of where he was at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier to suddenly deciding to be a congressman just feels like a weird left turn. And I kind of wish, if that's the route they wanted to go, that they did a little bit more with it. Like, yes, they do kind of have Bucky taking him in because he needs them to testify, but he also, when he does that kind of as the Winter Soldier, using like his basically arsenal to take him down and first try to take them in. I kind of wish there was a little more of him trying to do it by the books in the beginning before suddenly deciding to go back to being kind of the Winter Soldier. I don't know. It's just, to me, I think that I have that kind of a similar complaint with Bob when he becomes Sentry. Now, I think but like I'll talk more about it when we get into his overall character. Like I think I loved everything that they did with Bob. I just wish they had a little bit more right before he goes from Bob to Century, essentially. But then and in that exact way, I kind of wish we had a little bit more of, you know, him as the congressman, or if like they didn't want to do more with him as a congressman, I kind of wish that was just written out and they found something kind of more creative and something that more that felt like in character for him to do. It just, I don't know, just it just felt too out of left field for me is all. And it didn't, they didn't really go into why that was the path that he chose. I think that was the other thing, is that we don't know why this is what he wanted to try and do.
As far as congressman goes?
Yeah, exactly. So I wish there was either more of that or they just did something very different.
Yeah, like I wonder, I feel like when I think about Brave New World, I feel like the inclusion of Bucky in there might have been like a last minute sort of thing in order to kind of establish sort of what he's kind of up to. But I would agree with you in the sense that I wish that that was explored more, in the sense of him explaining to us why he decided to kind of go down that path a little bit. You know, Indian here says, I feel he is trying to help without killing, but it's what old Cap would want. With Bucky, I think so much time passed that they wind up skipping stuff. Yeah, I mean, I do
Yeah.
think that there's great storytelling has certainly have been told in that time period since him popping back up here. But I would, you know, look, I think we also have to take in consideration like where the MCU is universe wise, right? Like there's really no big superheroes out there, no really overall big threats, I guess you can say. So I can see why maybe some heroes would be sidelined or, you know, feel kind of stagnant. But I think Indy might be on to something in the sense of maybe he wants to kind of help without killing and do something that the way that Cap certainly would have wanted to go. But I think what this movie did well was show his frustrations, I think, with the idea of like he clearly wants to make a change. He clearly wants to have impact in the world in some way. And maybe he thought he can do it this way, but politics is just so damn slow. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, he's got to, when they interview him about like the court proceedings, and he's like trying to in his head just trying to make up like just talking points, you know, and he just keeps regurgitating the same thing over and over again, sort of thing. You can tell that he's just not made out for this, you know. The idea of things being going so like even when he goes to Val's reception or whatever that they were at the gala or whatever the case may be, and he's talking with his other congressman or at you know, over there, and he's like, we're gonna have another hearing, or we're getting our paperwork and stuff together, and he's like, what, like no, we got to act now, we got to do something, and he's like, we'll do this tomorrow, you know, like we're gonna go through all the proper channels and stuff. It clearly feels to me like, yes, Bucky wants to do good in other ways, but he's really realizing to himself that being a congressman like just is not, it's not doing it. Like it's just way too slow in regards to getting some kind of action done. So I think while he's maybe reluctant to get back into the superhero business a little bit, I think he realizes like if he wants to have real impact and meaningful impact, this is how he's got to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shout out to Kiki. What's up, Kiki? Appreciate you coming through, Kiki and Luca. Yeah, he says government didn't work. Val is still free. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think Bucky's you know, Bucky could be doing this too to keep his eyes on Val the entire time. Also, you know, have somebody kind of close to her that will bring her to justice if it certainly calls for it. But yeah, I will say I did like Bucky's character arc in here. I really did. I think the idea that he himself went through his own trials and tribulations in Falcon and a Winter Soldier, and he comes out in the sense of being able to fortify this team and understand where everybody's kind of coming from and be sort of that leader for everybody. I kind of dig it, man. I kind of dig it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's just, I didn't really love how it started.
Hey,
Thank you.
Bob.
I didn't love how it started. And again, only because like I just wish we had a little more explanation of what made him decide to do that. So even though I didn't love that, I do think that it worked with how he ended up though in the end. I think that's what really worked about his character growth.
Yeah, I really wanted to have. I would agree with you though. I really would have loved to have seen that, even if it's like an extra 5 minutes. I think that would have gone a really long way for this movie. Kiki said, "I thought the movie was overall pretty good, but it lacks the punch of a Winter Soldier or No Way Home or Ragnarok."
Mm.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I guess, well, they talked about the idea of Brave New World being like the new Winter Soldier. I don't know if they compared it to it, but they said they really wanted to try and get back to that. I thought this might have been closer than Brave New World to that aspect of things, but I can understand. I'm glad you overall thought it was pretty good though, Kiki. Um, let's talk a little bit about we got a bunch of characters we can kind of talk through real quick. Let's get this one out of the way. Taskmaster. Cle- Clearly done dirty in here. At least look,
Yeah.
I actually, Stuart, look, maybe I'm the asshole here, man. I did not care. Like, I just did not care. I mean, badass costume. I loved it. I thought first off, let me just say this. I thought the coming together of each of them was really clever. Um,
Yes. I would 100% agree with that.
the idea of them all being sent on a mission to go after one another and everybody be somebody else's mission, I thought that was really fun and really cool, to kind of see all the pieces being thrown together, and so to kind of see Taskmaster thrown in there. I literally just rewatched Black Widow the night before I watched Thunderbolts, and while Taskmaster's story is certainly a sad one, I just I didn't care, bro. Like, I thought it made for like great. I thought her purpose in here as like great shock value, even though I will say the casting of Doomsday did a terrible job of spoiling who was gonna make it out of this movie alive for me. So I thought that kind of really undercut the stakes of it all. Had they not done that, I think the Taskmaster killing would have made me feel like, oh snap, like I have no idea who's going to make it out of this movie alive. So the intention of it, I think, was perfect. But if you've seen the Doomsday casting, I think it undercuts it. But maybe for the general audience who doesn't pay attention to that stuff, maybe they come away with it a little bit better. But I just didn't care enough about her as a character to warrant to even want to see her fully in this entirety of the movie, besides the fact that I knew she was going to be a great fighter in a really cool costume. But maybe I'm just a jerk in here, Stuart. How did you feel about it though?
I mean, I thought it was kind of hilarious, unfortunately, and that was just because, like with most people, I didn't love her character in Black Widow. I definitely wouldn't say I was in the camp of I hated her so much. I wish they like killed her and then started over with the new Taskmaster. Like, but I also, here's the thing though too, is that that's only because I'm also not like the biggest like Taskmaster fan. I know that there's a lot of people that absolutely love that character, so I can see why those people were upset with the way that character was done in Black Widow. For me, I didn't really care
Well, she
one way
never
or
felt
another.
like she didn't
Yeah,
even feel like the character from the comics to me.
yeah.
Besides the abilities, like it just didn't feel like the same Taskmaster.
Because Taskmaster has actual personality, and he actually like talks and everything, like in the comic books. Whereas she was just like basically a shell of a human, which is what her. Obviously, that's what makes her a tragic character. But overall, like, I like you didn't really feel much. I thought it was kind of funny. Unfortunately, I didn't really think anything beyond that. I will
It got
give
a reaction
credit
from me
though.
for sure.
Yeah, I will give credit. I love that they did a good job of hiding that in the marketing, even if they didn't, even if they kind of spoiled it in Doomsday. I love that we see her in shots in the trailer that she's not
Oh yeah.
in.
Yeah.
The because usually they do the opposite. Usually they go in and like they try to crop out characters to hide who's actually going to be there. It's like the first time I've seen it where it's like they do the exact opposite. They add her in so that way we think that she's still alive. So yeah, overall, I thought it was like a crazy move on their their part. I still think they could have done stuff with her character to make her like actually interesting, make it so it's like over time, fans of the Taskmaster character in the comic books, definitely correct me if I'm wrong. One of the things about Taskmaster is we don't know their identity, correct? Like even now.
I believe so. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Taskmaster's origin.
If that is the case, I do think there's a world where they could have kept her alive and could have like had her become kind of more similar to her comic book counterpart. But
Okay.
I could be wrong. But either way, I think that it was just them killing her off really just felt like Marvel going like, yeah, we kind of messed up with this one. Sorry, guys. It felt like Ryan Reynolds shooting himself, or sorry, it felt like Deadpool shooting Ryan Reynolds before he filmed Green Lantern. That's what that scene kind of felt like to me.
I did read an article. I just posted it today on our Facebook page. The original writer for the original script writer for Thunderbolts, Eric Pearson, he did originally have a bigger story for Taskmaster. Um, that went through the entirety of the movie. He said that he was actually pretty shocked when he saw the first screen testing of the movie, come to find out that she she got killed off as soon as she did, in regards to like how much, what they changed out of his initial script. So she did have a bigger role originally to certainly play. So I'm sure some people will be kind of mad at it, but it's funny you talked about the idea of them editing her into scenes. They just revealed the new like posters and stuff for the new Avengers, and like you can barely make her out in this poster. Like she's just so far in the back. Like I'm surprised they didn't just cut her face out of this poster also. But
Or like replace
she's
her
back
with
there.
Bob.
Yeah, or replace her with Bob, yeah, or something like that. So yeah, she's still making the cut when it comes to marketing. I will say we talked about the idea a little bit of like this new Avengers tagline. I will be curious to see what the second day or second week box office is going to be like for this movie, because we talked a little bit about this, the idea that maybe name recognition alone of the Avengers might be appealing to some people, in the sense of like, oh, that's an Avengers movie, like I gotta check this out. They got a guy, Bucky's in this movie, they got a guy that looks kind of like Captain America, like I'm familiar with some of these people. Maybe it will help draw audience members to go ahead and see it. But I there's a part of me also that is kind of worried that maybe it might hinder things for them a little bit, um, because they spent so much time promoting it as Thunderbolts.
Mhm.
And even though we've seen the asterisk and been asking, like, what does this asterisk stand for? When you spend so much money marketing this movie in one particular way, I do wonder if that kind of undercuts it. And the idea that now you're promoting a brand new movie, at least I should say, with a new title, if that will really kind of confuse some people or not, in the sense of, are those the same movies? Is this a brand new movie? Like, I am curious to see, like, I guess second weekend will really tell a lot about this
Yeah.
strategy.
I think also too, because that's also paying more money for marketing, which it's kind of expensive. So
I
with
think they
all that,
probably
like,
I
are
probably I
they?
think they probably put I would hope that they already budgeted for this.
Oh, that's a good point. They probably did. But like, yeah. So I'm curious if with that extra money that you're putting into marketing, if the next weekend's income will be enough to make up for it.
I hope so. I thought it had a pretty good opening weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Can you look up Box Office Mojo for me when it comes to
Yeah. If
Thunderbolts?
I remember correctly, I think it was like good, but not like what they were hoping for.
I thought the worldwide was pretty good. I'm gonna see if I can find out what the
Oh, never
budget.
mind. I stand corrected. So it was 162 global. So 162 million global. Um,
Does it say what the budget was?
let's find out.
Oh, here we go. Reported
Thunderbolts.
budget 180 million. So it almost made its budget
Oh
back
yeah.
in one weekend, which I think is probably pretty great for them. Um, we'll see what the second weekend holds. Hopefully they can. I gotta assume they. Oh, okay. So what's 180 million? Let's predict this right now. Let me get my calculator out. So 180 million we're gonna times that by 2. So you always want to take the budget, divide that by 2. That's going to be $360 million. I would assume that they've spent about, it's a big blockbuster film, so they probably spent about $100 million in marketing. So I would say Thunderbolts probably needs about $460 million in order to break even for them. I think this movie might be able to get there.
Yeah.
I think this movie might be able to get there. We'll
Yeah,
see
I
what
think so.
second weekend box office is going to be like. It's getting really great word of mouth. The Rotten Tomato scores have been great. I'm hoping. I think second weekend will kind of give us a little bit more idea, if you will.
I think yeah, I think it'll really depend on the marketing for it. The one big competition that it has, in fact, I think they even brought it up in the comments, is that now they are going to have to go up against Sinners, which is also kind of doing really, as we talked about on APlus, Hero Report has been doing really good numbers. Even after its a big opening weekend. So, and plus they're bringing that back to some premium screens. So that's
Well,
also
just
going to be adding
yeah, it's
to the
just
competition.
right, but they do have some time. They do have some
Mhm.
time, because I don't think that they bring Sinners back until the 15th on IMAX. So Thunderbolts right now has about a week and a half of IMAX screenings available to them. But then, yeah, Sinners comes back for a week. I am wondering after that week if there's another big IMAX movie, or if maybe Thunderbolts could go back onto the IMAX screen again after Sinners winds up leaving. So they got definitely about a week and a half right now of IMAX screen time. And Kiki says, but it's budget plus marketing. So how I've always found what for movies to break even, it's not necessarily just making your budget back. And the reason for that is you also have to pay the movie theaters. And the movie theaters get about 33 to 50% of the ticket prices. So if a movie only makes its budget back, you would take about maybe half of that and give that to the movie theaters, which is why you want to double the box office. You want to double the budget of the film to take into account what you're going to be paying the movie theaters, and then you add your marketing costs on top of that. Usually $50 million for maybe not big blockbuster movies, and usually about $100 million for big blockbuster movies. So that's how I've usually always kind of calculated it. Some of the people like that I've seen before, John Campia from YouTube, he's a big movie guy. He's been doing movies for years. That's how he calculates this stuff. You can probably find this stuff on Google and break it down a little bit more, but always have to take into account what you're paying the movie theaters, which is why you want to double the budget of a film. So just so something for people to take along with them along the way when it comes to figuring out box office stuff. But you know who also was also great in this movie, man?
Mhm.
Florence Pugh. She's just so incredible, man. I have really, I think for me it really helped getting the opportunity to rewatch Black Widow and see her introduction into here, and then also just seeing her growth when it comes to something like Hawkeye, the concept of her being blipped, coming back only to find that her sister is dead, and then really kind of going into this movie, just understanding why she feels sort of this void inside, why she feels empty, why she feels lonely. Hasn't even talked to her father in like a year, sort of thing, right? I mean, it's just that monotony of life, of just living day by day, doing your job, clocking in, clocking out, going home. Some people don't have like the social life, especially for Yelena, based off of what she does. It's not like she can have a group of people she can just go and hang out with after she gets off work, sort of thing. So with everything really being taken away from her, you know, for me, I just thought the themes of like mental health and depression and feeling lonely was such a great theme for this movie, because I do think that there's a little bit of a epidemic going around of loneliness, whether that be for men or just people in general in this world. I think there are a lot of people that deal with some level of depression or mental illness in the sense of like high anxiety and don't necessarily know how to like um don't like can't really tell if they're depressed or they're just going through life feeling sort of like this type of way. And for me, it was just really cool to be able to see how all these characters kind of suffer for something along those lines, but especially Yelena, because I think out of outside of Bucky, who has gotten over that hump in his life, being able to see Yelena, I think, as um the character that we've been exposed to the most in regards to characteristics and her growth. um Hers just really hit for me in the sense of connecting with that character a little bit more in here. But I thought the theme for this movie was really perfect, Stuart.
Yeah, I did as well. I think yeah, like you summed it up perfectly. Like that's the main thing with her character is kind of like the loneliness and then just like, also the regret of like, her entire life. And I think what's so great about Yelena in this movie isn't just like not only is she amazing as a standout character, but I think her character interactions are what made her like so great, not just so with Bob specifically, and then of course Red Guardian. I think just the way Red Guardian, even though for the most part he's almost like kind of the comedic relief of the team, he's also knows exactly what to say at certain times. He's one of those like kind of like oh god, how would you describe him? He's like that kind of that old character who sees himself as the mentor, but oftentimes he's just spewing absolute nonsense. But then somewhere in that nonsense is actually
There is a
something where it's
gem
like,
of,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a gem of gold. And I think like the way the two of them interact and play off of each other is so perfect, because at times like he tells her exactly what it is that she needs to hear. Like the main thing being, of course, you were a child and like, yeah, it was messed up what happened, but you're just as much of a victim in that whole thing as like the other person that you kind of lured in, because they did that to you. They made you do that. That wasn't you going out of your way to hurt someone. That was someone forcing you to hurt someone. And so I think that he was the perfect man to kind of like help her rationalize that, help her see that, and I think the way that she plays off of Bob in that same way, she is kind of exactly what Bob needed. Because Bob, a guy who kind of clearly suffers from so many mental illnesses. And then one of them is like kind of, and that's what mostly causes like his loneliness. Something I gotta say I absolutely loved about the interaction between the two of them is that Bob's like more trauma felt very much like grounded in reality, felt like real trauma that real people in our real world go through. Whereas Yelena, child assassin working for this Russian government agency, as a kid and all that, completely out of this world type of trauma that like very like maybe there's people in the real world that can relate to that, but they were very few and far in between. But I love how like it didn't really matter what type of trauma they were dealing with, they were both still dealing with their own like childhood trauma together. And that's what kind of like helped. It didn't matter like how different their worlds were, they still were able to kind of like help each other through that. Mostly her helping Bob through his, and then in return basically saving all of New York through doing so. And I think that's what made her just perfect at, and that's why I see her as like kind of the main character of this movie. Like,
Yeah, I
while
do
I
too.
do
Yeah, she
see
is.
I see Bucky as kind of the leader, I
Right.
see Yelena as the main character because she's the one who I think has the biggest impact on everyone who's part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely, especially from her father. And I gotta agree with you in regards to Bob. I mean, Bob was so relatable. I think there's a lot of people, regardless if they've been through his trauma, maybe like know somebody that acts the way that he does, whether that be like his little ticks that his facial expressions, the closed offness that he has, like the awkwardness when he's around people, like I think we probably either all know somebody like that, or we've heard stories of people like that, or like it's just very sort of relatable in regards to shutting yourself off from the rest of the world, or not being sociable, or not knowing how to interact because you've just had, I mean, one, clearly the guy's had drug issues, but those drug
Mhm.
issues are due to a lot of the trauma that he's kind of experienced in his life. And so it's just kind of crazy. This movie shows you like just different like you said, people can probably relate to Bob. They can't necessarily relate to somebody like Yelena in that regards, but every character almost has like a path into this loneliness, depression, mental struggle that I think somebody in the audience can kind of like attach themselves to. And I think that's really why I thought this message in this movie was really really brilliant. You know, like, and I even talked to my girlfriend outside of out after we got done with this, and I don't want to put too much of her business out there, but she is somebody that deals with depression and stuff. And you know, I wanted to get her perspective on this on the movie and stuff, and she says yeah, it was incredibly relatable to me. You know, she's like, some of the ways that they described how they're feeling, she's like, that's how I find myself feeling. And I thought to myself, like, the concept of the void alone as like this perfect representation, the character
Mhm.
along with the feeling that people have, and the fact that they're all experiencing that, was just like, that's like the true embodiment of that depression that people carry around inside of them, kind of coming to life, that they have to overcome and battle. And for me, one of the most moving moments of this movie is when Bob is up there and he's just punching down, right? And you would think like, oh, he's beating his battle, sort of thing, only to come to find out he's getting darker, he's falling further and further into it. And I just love the idea that it's just like, a hug,
Mhm.
to let somebody know that you're not alone, that, the idea of overcoming this stuff is not to be alone. And look, my girlfriend, my when my girlfriend gets into her bouts of depression, that's what she wants to be. Like when it's moody and it's dark and it's overcast and it's rainy, there are times when people just want to be closed off while they're dealing with this stuff. And it's very much like that can be just as worse for all of us. You know what I mean? And the idea of kind of coming together, a simple hug, letting people know that we are connected and we're there for each other. Man, this shit was just so powerful to me. I was really, really impressed with the message that they were able to get across and keep it in within the confines of a comic book movie. It's just really, really incredible storytelling, I thought.
Definitely. The power of friendship, but written in a way that was actually very moving and like
Yeah.
worked for the plot. Speaking of the void, dude, those because again, going back to some complaints I've had with a lot of recent Marvel movies is so much of it is just filmed in front of green screens now. And I'm not talking about the shows. I think the shows have gotten a lot better, especially Agatha at like actually creating some really good sets. But like I think mostly I'm thinking of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, and even like kind of like most of the final act of Shang-Chi. It's just it seems like we just got to this point where there was just way too much of a reliance on green screen. And even when it came to just trying to get actors in the same room together, it feels so empty because they're often not together. They're often like pasted together, through green screen effects, and like they did with Multiverse Madness, like you had it with some of the reshoots. You could tell with Brave New World. And it's such a relief to like get this Marvel movie where these sets, which are so incredible, like these really well like put together sets, are like actually there. I mean, obviously there was definitely some green screen moments like during the big climax for the scenes that took place in New York. That's to be expected. But when it came to like kind of being in the void, I love that they didn't rely on green screens. Like you actually had these really good practical sets that were there. And I love how throughout this whole movie, it never felt like there was a reshoot where they couldn't get a couple of actors together at the same time. You always had the actors there together in the same room, making the interactions between all of them just feel so much more genuine. It's been something that's just felt very it's what makes a lot of other Marvel movies we've gotten in recent years feel kind of empty compared to this one. This one feeling like an actual movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Even from like the set piece of Yelena being in her mind in that forest, and then going into like one of the households, I believe, going into Bob's house, I thought was pretty cool. I thought the editing of everything inside the void worked out really, really, really well. From going from like room or memory or to memory sort of thing, I thought was was really spectacular. But I would agree, a lot of these movies lately have been feeling very reliant on CGI. So this felt like it was a nice sort of return to just great cinematic filmmaking, if you will. And the design, I will say this: the special effects, though, really did work for me in regards to the design of the Void in here.
Mhm.
It's probably one of the more menacing depictions of a villain that I thought that they were able to really make him feel really dreadful. Like, oh my god, like he looks like he's going to be a problem for people. And this kind of goes back a little bit to what we talked about when it came to Sinners. You know, when it comes to like the vampire and their eyes, I thought the way that they did the Void's eyes in here, like him being all black and then just being like the two dots, was just the creepiest thing. It really, really, really worked for me in here. So for like a special effects point of view, I thought they really nailed it with him. And there's even a really great shot in here too for Sentry when he's battling the Thunderbolts. Like there are moments when we see him going up against people individually, but there is like a really long one cut shot, if you will, of just Sentry as Bob just like standing there and everybody coming at him and attacking him, or him attacking them, sort of thing. It was very stationary just on him as a character, and just being able to see just how impenetrable and invincible this guy certainly was, and how he was just kind of manhandling people left and right. I just thought it was a really great way of showcasing his powers, and kind of going back a little bit to sort of the I don't want to I don't want to say like, you know, the Avengers used to kind of give us those really long one shot sequences, or like battles, if you will, when we get introduced to the whole entire gang. It kind of felt a little bit reminiscent of that in here, and I think it's kind of poetic that it took place inside of the Avengers Tower. But I thought the brief fight between them and the Sentry was actually was pretty incredible in here too. So I just thought it was really great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It was incredibly well filmed, and I love the Century costume that we ended up getting. I thought the actor, what's the actor's name? Lewis
Lewis Pullman.
Pullman, looked absolutely incredible in the Century outfit. And I do love kind of the like the personality that you get with him as Sentry. You know, it's just not something you would normally see with that type of a superhero. It almost like, just, you know, main difference being this guy actually, you know, was redeemable, and like actually well, I guess maybe the other guy could have been, who knows. But it kind of reminded me of Jonah Hill's character in Megamind, when he gets like superpowers, like kind of towards the end of it. That was kind of the vibe I was getting with him as Sentry. You know, when they were trying to like take him down, just like a dude that you would normally not expect to have that kind of power, suddenly having that kind of power. And you know, that fear of what would a guy like that do with that power, especially when he started like questioning Valentina. Like, first of all, like her controlling a guy like that, you know, as strong as he is, would be terrifying. But then the moment he started going, but wait, why should I listen to you? Because like you said it yourself, I have the power of all the Avengers. That's at least like one god. You know, that was the moment where you're like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of that Burn Bright movie for a minute there, when it becomes like aware of his abilities and like the
Mhm.
strength that he has over human people, and just how terribly wrong it's about to go. That's I definitely gave me like a Burn Bright moment. Seeing that kind of unfold. But you know what? You know what's fascinating to me? Lewis Pullman wasn't even the first cast for this movie. It was supposed to be Glenn from The Walking Dead. Stephen Yeun was officially cast to be of the Sentry. And I gotta tell you, Stuart, after seeing Lewis Pullman, like I literally cannot imagine anybody else being in this role. Like the ability to have three different personas, whether that be the Void, whether that be him as Sentry, or the misplaced Bob that had all the, you know, issues, sort of thing. To be able to do all three of those the way that he did, I'm just thinking to myself, like, bro, I not to say that I think like, oh, nobody could have done this role, but like, if you told me Stephen Yeun was the first person cast for this role, I would have been like, no way, bro. No way. No way. Like I can't picture it now. Like I just can't picture it now. I think Lewis Pullman did that good of a job.
Mhm. I I think I could picture Steven Yeun in that role. Like, I think he would have also done a pretty good job, but it turning out the way it did, I think, yeah, Lewis Pullman was perfect.
And just and shout out to Stephen Yoon though too, because I do want to throw out here, Kiki and Luca does say the writers were from The Bear and Beef, which on one hand explains a lot in regards to like why this movie was so well written. While I think the original script was by Eric Pearson, they clearly saw the script and thought to themselves, this definitely needs more work. And they wind up bringing in the writers for Beef, which Stephen Yoon himself was actually in the series Beef on Netflix. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, please go ahead and do yourselves a favor. But yeah, you also get somebody, the writers like The Bear, to then come in and also do like a third pass on the script. That's one of the reasons why I felt so incredibly confident about this movie the way that I did, was because after watching both of those shows, I just kept thinking to myself, like, this is top tier writing. I mean, both of those shows were recognized at the Emmys, if I'm not mistaken. And even though I know that Kevin Feige likes to find like these television directors or these television writers that don't really make these big blockbuster films, there are times when he does hit and strike gold, and this was definitely one of them. And so I am really hoping that going forward, these writers come back and do another MCU project at some particular point in time, because they are really able to balance out great action. I mean, there's another action, two other action pieces that really stand out to me. One, when we've got all the combatants fighting and they meet each other for the first time inside of the vault, I thought that was really great fight sequence, great editing along the way too. But also very early on in the movie, there's a great hallway shot of Yelena going through a bunch of like security guards or soldiers, and it's just a camera work from the ceiling kind of looking down as she's going through the hallway sort of thing. I was a really big fan of the action pieces, so they were able to do a lot in regards to not just really great character work and exploring these characters even further, really pushing them into new directions for themselves, but able to balance out great humor, because I definitely got some great chuckles out of this movie, but also amazing action. I really hope that they bring them back to do something else.
Yeah, I also gotta give that. In fact, I think that was also another comment here of how this movie does a great job of balancing the drama, the humor, and yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment, because yeah, I found myself laughing my ass off at times, but then also found myself getting like, oh, I'm getting kind of emotional here, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Indy says Glenn went through that character transition, maybe talking a little bit about why he maybe would have fit really well as Bob in this movie. And look, I got to tell you, I outside of him as Glenn, I hadn't really seen him in too much stuff, but I watched him in Beef. Oh, he was also in Mickey 17
Yeah.
this year too. I watched him in Beef, and he was great in that. So there's a part of me that when they first initially announced him, I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is going to be really cool to kind of see what Steven's range is really going to be like. But man, you put Lewis Pullman in there, and like now I can't unsee it, dude. I was really hella impressed. Um, real quick, I want to leave John Walker for last, but we talked a little bit about Red Guardian. Oh, let's talk a little bit about Red Guardian and Yelena again, just sort of real quick. Uh, there is something really cool that I loved about, and I'm sorry that this image isn't clearer than the rest of them. I might just go back to Yelena's picture. I There is a recurring theme that I feel like from Black Widow into Thunderbolts here, and that is the idea of finding your purpose. Um, Natasha mentioned something to Yelena in Black Widow about the idea of like hoping that she eventually follows that path, because for Natasha, not only did she had a very bloody ledger, but she also wanted to help people. And she says that she found something in the idea of being a hero that she just did not find anywhere else. And I love that the Red Guardian here sort of reminds Yelena of that. in the sense that there is more to life than just what you're doing. It's really like the idea of taking what you're capable of doing and turning it into something good, and to be able to kind of see the look on people's faces, the true appreciation for the work that you do. Even seeing Red Guardian kind of jump into action in here and save the little girl's life before she got before she got voided, which was crazy. But just to kind of see him taking the advice that not only Natasha gives Yelena, but the advice that he gives to her, and showcasing to her exactly what it means to be a hero. It feels like that is the missing piece for Yelena to fully embrace in order to have sort of that purpose in her life again. What did you think about just that topic or idea for her?
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense, and like you said, it was well set up. Like even before this, like we set that whole idea up in Black Widow with her character introduction, and then like in Hawkeye, like I guess there was it wasn't really didn't really have much focus, so she didn't really kind of grow that much in Hawkeye. But I think that the setup from Black Widow really helped with the overall payoff here of us like really focusing on her, and then her, like again, like you said, just not really knowing her purpose in life yet. Like obviously she wants to take up that mantle of her sister, but as we see Deadpool learning in his movie, you can't just like walk into Avengers Tower and be like, hey, I want to be important, I want to matter. I think it made total sense for her to not know exactly how to get there. And of course, the thing that sucks in her situation is that she ends up working for probably not the right person to help her get to where she wants to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she tells Val, like, I want something front and center. And Val's response is, I'm going to have you killed.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm going to have you killed. I don't need you in the spotlight, sort of thing. Did Ghost get any? How did you feel about Ghost in this movie? This is also, I'm not going to lie, another character. For those of you who have followed me for a long time, I did not care so much about Ant-Man and the Wasp as a movie, unfortunately. So I didn't really care for Ghost as a character. I will say, I am I wish he had gotten maybe a little bit more focused the way that some of the other characters did, but they definitely I don't want to say separated her, but definitely made her stand on her own in regards to a character worth paying attention to. A character that certainly matters, that she's certainly not just there. Um, but I wish I had learned a little bit more about like her reasonings for like what she was battling with outside of what we had already learned from her from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Maybe it's something I missed in the film. Did they go a little bit more in depth for her, or did they not? They kind of skimmed over that, right? Like
They
everybody else
really
got that
did.
shine.
Like, yeah, that's she's the one character I feel like you could have taken out of the movie and it would have like every plot. Actually, the only thing she did that contributed to the plot was killing Taskmaster. Like that was the only thing that
Well,
moved
she
any.
did. She
Oh,
did
and she
save
was
them.
the
She
actually,
did
yeah, that is
save
true.
them.
She was also okay. So I will take that back. I think the reason she felt empty as a character in this is because all of her big moments were in the beginning of the movie. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, wait, she actually did do quite a few important things in the beginning of the movie. But then it kind of feels like once we get to that climax, she's just kind of like there. I can't really think of too many ways off the top of my head of how she really contributed to the plot once they got there. It almost kind of felt like the writers forgot she was a character that they established, and I think like it also didn't help that like, yeah, she didn't really have like any. I feel like there were things they could have explored, a lot of things that they set up about her character in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah,
But
that's why I thought they were going to build off of that a little bit more.
her,
Like
especially with her being forced to rely off of something or else I can't even remember because it's been so long since I've seen that movie, but if I remember correctly, she needed a very specific substance that she has to keep using in order to keep herself from like completely disappearing. So it's weird that that never came up in the movie, that, her condition never came up, because I feel like that's something they could have really explored. Like, how physical health issues can have like an effect on your mental health as well. How it, it caused her to be like isolated from other people around her. There were just so many things they could have done with that. And I probably wouldn't be like this weirded out by the fact that they didn't do any of that, except for they do that with all the other characters. So it just feels
yeah, yeah.
weird for her to kind of like take a back seat during the second and third act.
Yeah, I felt like she might have had like one or two sentences that hinted at something, and I think she even talked a little about the idea, like, I can only hold my breath for like a minute or 60 seconds or something along those lines. But everybody else kind of had a little bit of why we're here, what we're dealing with, like why we feel the way that we do. Whereas, yes, while we might have gotten that in Ant-Man and the Wasp, based off of the fact that everybody else kind of got that moment for people to connect with, yeah, I felt like hers was almost forgotten about in a
Yeah.
sense. Like we get it, but I really would have loved to have them gone a little bit deeper in that regards. Indy says she talked about living in the suit, and I felt like I wonder how much she went into details, because I don't even remember that. I maybe like I said, maybe like in a passing sentence or two, but I guess maybe it's not something that really like connected with me, or like really had any further exposition outside of that I really would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, maybe there's a deleted scene about it, or yeah, I guess I gotta
Yeah,
watch
because
this movie again to find out.
yeah, maybe, because what I thought was really cool was seeing the Void's power in use. Like, he almost touched everybody except Ghost. Like, he touches Yelena, it takes her into her memory. Touches John, you get to see the shit he's kind of dealing with. Why didn't we get one of those moments for Ghost? That I think that would
Mhm.
have added a ton of more context and made her character even that much more important.
The only thing I could think of is that doing a flashback with her may require Lawrence Fishburne, and they probably just couldn't afford him at the time.
I mean, maybe.
They're like, we already used up our budget.
Maybe. Um, and then let's talk a little bit about John Walker here for a second. Wyatt Russell, man, I gotta tell you, I loved him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I loved him here again, man. Just that arrogant a-hole, as Lewis as Bob would certainly call him. There is like just this arrogance about this man, that he like just can do no wrong, that he seems like he seemingly knows everything, that he's got to that everything's got to be done his way. It probably goes back to him thinking to himself he's the most experienced person here, not really taking into consideration the fact that he's talking to a former black widow here, in front of him, sort of thing. And so yeah, he's just one of those guys, just arrogant, tries to take the lead, sort of thing, really kind of compensating for certainly a lot in his life, especially after everything that happened to him when it comes to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But if I could be real with you for a second here, you know, I know we know after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he felt a little bit more redeemed because Val gave him an opportunity. I'm back. I'm back. Right? He got the suit and everything. Um, Despite him losing everything, losing all his official ranking and stuff, losing the Captain America shield, Val gave him a chance. And um, clearly he's been working for Val for the past however long since we've last seen them. Um, but as a father myself, sometimes the hardest challenge in life is being a parent, bro. you know, there is something interesting about, like, despite how one, he's clearly dealing with how his name has been drugged through the dirt after everything that's happened, right? He feels some type of way that's how people view him a certain way now. But then you add onto the idea of him being a father to a toddler. Um, it is a job. It is a task. It is probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And what's crazy to me, while I don't know how John feels about his failed gig as Captain America, the idea of like having to pay attention to your kid, being stuck on your phone, constantly scrolling and being stuck onto a screen, and realizing that like you're missing time raising your child or raising your kid, and the frustrations that can lead to being in a relationship and being with somebody that you love and care for, it's being a parent is not easy, and co-parenting with somebody and having the different like methods of raising a kid can really clash at times, and I would assume with where Walker is in his head of being depressed and feeling kind of forgotten or lonely at times, you know, the idea of like the wife coming in and the idea of like, well, you do it then. If you know how to do it, you do it then. And then kind of walking out. That shit is just so real.
Mhm.
When you are just trying to raise a kid and you're frustrated with other things in your life, and then you got this kid crying, and you're clearly going through some things. Like, for me as a dad, I have definitely found myself at times not only being frustrated with my toddler and his outbursts, his own temper tantrums, but there are times I think just as a society, we've become so plugged into our phones that we tend to forget everything else that's kind of going around him. And there have been times when I've had to tell myself, like, I could literally be missing my child growing up right in front of me because I'm so busy trying to be on my phone half the time. And it's something that I've really have had to kind of teach myself in the sense that I don't want to kind of miss these moments. So to kind of like John Walker's struggles in here, which is so real to me from a father perspective. Yes, there's a whole added layer to him, but just seeing him doom scrolling on his phone and not paying attention to his kid and missing those opportunities and thus causing more frustration within his household and having those arguments and those outbursts and stuff. If that ain't real shit for a parent, I don't know what is, dude. And so yeah, I that shit just really kind of hit home for me, and I was a really big fan of Walker in this movie.
Yeah. It was definitely a very like human kind of yeah, like a human kind of regret, that he has. It felt very much like, there were a lot of ways they could have really gone with his character in this movie, especially with how they left things off in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They could have gotten really, really dark with it. But I like that they kind of took the more human approach with him. Like, he is definitely, not the kind of person you necessarily want to be Captain America, but that doesn't mean he's like, necessarily a terrible person like altogether. It's just that he's just not in a position that someone like him with that kind of mindset should be in. He's
Mm.
someone who wants to do good, and he can definitely do good when working with the right people. But as they kind of show very early on in the movie, there is a really good thing that he does not end up leading this team, because he would have gotten them all killed instantly. Movie would have been over like really fast. So yeah, I do think that like the way they continue his character, I think there's still a lot of room for him to grow, and I look forward to seeing how that development goes later on down the line. But yeah, I do think that yeah, he was just a really fascinating character to me, because again, it would have been just so easy to make him just straight up unlikable and straight up like just the one Thunderbolts character that you're not supposed to like. And in a way, like, he is kind of the kind of the big punch, like I know that like Red Guardian is kind of the comedic relief of the team. He kind of feels like the punchline of the team, and I think it kind of works, and I think
Yeah.
that's like what can help him kind of grow later on as a character. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I love the snarky remarks of like Yelena and Ghost, like when when they're trying to have him do his plan, and like, okay, yeah, John, yeah, whatever you want to do. Like, just the snarky remarks that they had, very much like their punching bag for
Mhm.
sure, a little bit at times. I even really love the scene when they're trapped with Bucky, and I think it's Bucky that tells people that like he didn't have his kids anymore, or like his wife walked out on him or something. Like, there's just a really great interaction moment between John and Yelena where they kind of look at each other when like something's revealed, and Yelena gets like a much better look as to who John is. And it's like John didn't want people to know that aspect kind of his life. I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was the announcement that his wife and kid walked out on him or something like that. But yeah, it was just some John to me was really interesting. And what's even more fascinating, Stuart? Have you seen I don't know if you've been on social media lately, but there's been like um a John Walker fan base growing here. There's been a lot of people kind of which is crazy, bro. People are kind of defending his actions now from Falcon and the Winter
Oh,
Soldier. Have you seen that discourse that's starting to happen
I
now?
I haven't.
Because of the fact that they have found him so appealing in Thunderbolts, uh, they're now talking about the idea that he should have gotten the shield, that Sam shouldn't have. Sam is just so boring for them. I've seen people talk about the idea, like, yeah, he killed that guy, but he was a terrorist. Like I've literally seen this discourse on social media on Twitter right now. It's Twitter, so it's a
Yeah.
it's a cesspool of hatred already. But it's kind of bananas, like the lack of media literacy that some people are experiencing, and like just how quickly people will turn on the dime in regards to like just from like one movie alone, dude. It's pretty bananas. Let me see. Somebody said because I did reply to it. I was like, shake my head. Oh my god. Um Somebody said he murdered a guy in public, like in broad daylight, very graphically. Did they bring that up at all in Thunderbolts? And someone said, dude was a terrorist who was just fine with letting people burn to death in a building. Also contributed to the death of Walker's best friend, Lamar. F him. Give Walker a medal. And a guy said, no, Walker definitely did something wrong. It's obviously manslaughter and killing a person who had surrendered, which is bad. Like,
Mhm.
Walker should have most stepped down as Captain America, not lost all his purple hearts. And Homeboy said, he never surrendered. He tossed the bench at him, which would have likely killed Walker if he wasn't a super soldier. He never surrendered. He just says, it wasn't me. He's still active threat as a super soldier. Like, they're trying to justify John Walker's actions, bro. Like, I'm sorry. The blood on the Captain America shield will live in my
Mhm.
mind forever as one of the craziest cinematic moments in MCU history to me. Like, how can you say, like, it's crazy to me, Stuart?
It's something I wish I could be shocked by, but nowadays it's so hard for anyone to say something that'll surprise me. Ever since I started seeing people like trying to say, "No, isn't Homelander the hero in The Boys? Isn't he a good guy just misunderstood?" When you get those kind of comments, it's like at this point nothing can really surprise me the way people will just like look at something that's so very plainly to be meant to be one thing and then they'll look at it as, "Oh, well, if you think about it,
Yeah, like,
he's not that
no.
bad." It's like, yeah, no matter how you look at it, like to me, like when you have that much power and you're going up against someone, even if we're
Right.
going with the logic of, oh well, he didn't actually surrender, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he's a super soldier and he shouldn't be killing people
And
because
you're
yeah,
Captain
you're
America,
Captain
bro.
America. You're representing an entire country. So it's like, yeah, no matter what way you look at it, he should not have killed that man.
Like, my God, dude. Like, what are we talking about, guys? I mean, look, I like John Walker in this movie as much as
Oh yeah.
everybody. That does not erase the crazy, awful shit that he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason why. I think even Elena says, like, we've all done bad things. Like, we're all bad people here. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so, I think it's a friendly reminder. But it doesn't look. I do appreciate their journey, regardless if they're good or bad. They clearly are all been dealing with some crazy ass shit in their lives, after those ramifications of all the horrible shit that they've done, and to be able to kind of find a group of people that kind of help you overcome your current burdens and your current struggles and whatever sort of mental health issues that we certainly might have. I thought they did a really good job. I'm not going to say they redeemed all these characters, but they definitely put them in a really great light to where I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing a lot more of them, to say the least. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed this movie a lot.
Me too.
I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular that we might have missed that we wanted to talk about for the new Avengers. I'm like, should I call this movie the new Avengers? Is this still Thunderbolts
You
now?
should you should include both titles, the asterisks, and then put New Avengers right after Thunderbolts, if the YouTube titling system lets us do that.
It might be able to
Or
put
if
that
there's no,
ash.
yeah, because I don't know what the character limit is on YouTube titles.
I think it's 100. I think. I probably might have some more room in there for sure. I don't necessarily know if I want to give it away yet, like Marvel Studios did. I mean, they immediately changed it like at the first weekend. Um, I might wait until at least next weekend and then come back and actually update the title name for this show.
Just imagine if they did that with Avengers Infinity War. They just took all the posters after the first weekend and then they reposted them, but with half the Avengers missing.
Oh damn, yeah, that'd be crazy. That would be crazy. Um, you know, I kind of want to see this movie again. I kind of do. There is a part of me that's starting to, I had a really big prediction in here for this movie, saying I think it was going to be the best Marvel movie of the year. So far, it definitely is. But I am wondering if Fantastic Four can be even better than this. And while I love this movie and I think this movie is really good, there's a part of me that's like, I think it might be able to be, but because they've got a really great group of actors, and if that movie ends the way that I think it ends, in order for Fantastic Four to even be in our world in the first place, I'm really, I don't know. I think this might be a close one, Stuart. This might be a close one.
I am not only excited to see how good Fantastic Four is, I'm excited to see what the box office for that is going to look like, because it's such a recognizable, iconic name, but it's also pretty well known that there hasn't really been a big success out of them. But I feel like this could be the one that does it. I think Fantastic Four is going to be a good experience.
And look, I think what this movie does that helps it out is it leads us into that movie.
Yes, it perfectly teases us. And lets us know, even though Fantastic Four is in another universe, don't worry, guys, it's still going to connect.
Right. So then, like, everybody that's watched Thunderbolts now wants to go ahead and watch Fantastic Four. And then you've got probably a group of people that already want to watch Fantastic Four from name recognition alone, sort of thing. So you now have another pool of people. I'm sure some of those pools cross over, but maybe some of them don't. So I don't know. I think you give people an incentive now to go back to the movie and actually see the Fantastic Four. And I do think that's a really big missing piece that Marvel Studios has not really tapped into when it comes to this recent phases of having movies sort of help lead into your next upcoming project the way that the previous phases certainly did. So I definitely find this as a big win. I hope that this movie does really well at the box office. Look, guys, if there's anything in particular that we might have missed that you guys want to further go ahead and talk about, please go ahead and let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And let me just say this. I've always been an advocate of therapy and getting your mental health right. We live in a crazy ass world right now. Sometimes the idea of being lonely is a thing, not having a lot of friends, not having an outlet of people or people that you can just let your frustrations out to or talk to people about. I think this movie is a really great open door to show that the struggle hits all of us in some way. And the way to overcome that is through connecting with people, whether that be your family, whether it be your friends, whether that be a therapist. If you feel some type of way, please pick up the phone, call somebody, go get yourself help in some way, shape, or form. Therapy is never a sign of weakness. If anything, I feel like if anything, it makes me certainly much stronger as a person. Having that self-awareness and understanding the feelings that I'm feeling and what I'm going through goes a long way. So I'm a big advocate for it. Thank you, Thunderbolts, for having a great message that I think everybody can certainly attach themselves to in some way. But yes, connect with people, man. Connect with people for sure. Any last thoughts, Stuart, before we leave?
Nope. I think we said it all.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, look, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you guys so much for certainly joining us. We'll probably do this again for Fantastic Four. It's been a minute since we've done a spoiler review for a big Marvel movie. So now that Marvel feels like it's back to form in some way, maybe we'll continue to do this, but that will do it for us here. We'll certainly see you guys later on this week with other content, and of course this upcoming Sunday live for APlus Hero Report. But until then, do us a big favor, as always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it APlus. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.